Welcome to Season 3, Episode 8 of We're Just Talking About It. We continue our conversation with Sabeeha, an author and activist for interfaith conversations in this country. Sabeeha moved from Pakistan to New York in 1971. Decades later, her 8-year-old grandson, who was autistic, would be detained after 9/11 because his name matched a name on the no-flight list. It was after this incident that she made it her passion to educate people and conduct interfaith conversations throughout the world. And so today we ask her about what it means to her to be Muslim and what Islam means to her. We hope you enjoy this episode. So were you and your family part of the first mosque that was ever erected in New York?
Part of the second mosque that was built in Staten Island. So Staten Island is one of the boroughs of New York. When we settled there was a very thriving Albanian community. They had a mosque and they were very helpful to us. We used their space until we could build a mosque of our own. So this was the second mosque on Staten Island. But yes, we were so involved, my husband and I and our friends, that's all we thought about. That's all we talked about at dinner time with our children. That's the thought we took to bed. That was the thought I had when I was driving to work. We were totally immersed in it because there were many challenges. We are not allowed to take interest on loans or pay interest. We meaning Muslims. Now, we were all breaking the rules because we had mortgages on our homes.
Sure.
But we were told that a mosque is sacred and there's no going around it. And that meant that we had to raise money to buy a piece of property. And our collective funds were not enough to swing it. And that then meant fundraising after fundraising after fundraising until people stopped looking us in the eye.
Yeah.
And
oh no, here they come again.
Right, here they come again. And we couldn't go to the next town and ask them for funds because they were doing their own fundraising. So after 2 years, we had just enough money to buy an old warehouse. And that's all we could afford. And it sat empty for 2 years until we did more fundraising and then constructed the first level of that building. And so many years later, you could say it looked like a mosque, but that's what it took to get it operational.
Wow.
So we were very involved, very committed, very driven, and we loved it. We just loved the experience.
Now, I had actually that raises an interesting point. So you were doing most of this. Sounds like all of this locally. I had lunch last year with the president of ISNA, and he was telling me about when he first came over. That was one of the original things they got involved with on a national level, was trying to find these communities that were trying to raise money. Did you get some help at a national level or from any organizations, Muslim groups, or was this something you had to do completely locally?
We did reach out to the APNA, which is the American Association of Pakistani Physicians of North America.
That's where I had lunch with him. At
really?
their meeting last year. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, nice. So just as we were getting close to the finish line, we ran out of money and we were exhausted. We had totally exhausted our funds. And my husband, who's a physician, said, why don't we reach out to the Pakistani Physicians Group?
Sure.
So we then sent a letter out to every one of the members and we said we are only asking for $50. That worked like a charm, because if we had left it open-ended, people would have felt embarrassed giving less money.
Sure.
And by asking for very little, we were able to, within a few weeks, finish the project and open the doors of our mosque. And what our plea to them was, Eid is coming and we want to have our Eid prayers in this mosque. Please send us $50. So they sent us 50, they sent us more, and so that was the organization we reached out to.
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah, that's good fundraising advice right there too. You tie it to a holiday and something special, and you give
and
a good,
set amount,
an easy amount that anybody can handle.
That is.
I do a lot of nonprofit work, so that's great
Okay.
advice.
You talked about it briefly. I don't know if you want to go into it a little bit more, but how you introduced the Muslim faith to, or the faith to your American-born sons.
Were they asking before you started teaching them, or did you decide, we need to do this, so let's talk to the kids about it?
The latter. So they were, one was in kindergarten and the other was even younger, 2 years younger, was when I started reading these stories to them in the morning, on the sofa, by the window, a story a day. And that was how I introduced the faith to them. And then in the Sunday school, it just happened organically, in the sense that that's what all the children were doing. This was more of a fun thing for them, because every Sunday they got to meet their friends, and they were all, chanting the prayers, learning how to do the call to prayer, and it became more of a social thing for them in the beginning than anything else. Yes, they're going to a class, but they're also going to have a lot of fun and some goodies to eat. So it kind of grew organically in them.
Yeah, okay. And you mentioned Sunday school and Sunday. Were you taking advantage of that being the kind of the holiday in America that you could do religious training, or were you doing this on Fridays?
We were doing this on Sundays because that's the time when the parents were off.
Sure. That's a great adaptation. I mean, that's what you do when you live in a country that doesn't have the same calendar system. You've got to figure it out.
And easy for our sons to say, oh, so my Christian friend is going to Sunday school? Well, so am I. And
Perfect.
Kind of,
that's great.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. And really, without your own mosque or center to go to, how do you work that anyways? You had to kind of adopt something there. That's great.
And also we had moved, we found this out after we moved, in a community that was an Orthodox Jewish community. So our children would see the families walking to Sabbath services on Saturday mornings, all dressed up, families walking together, pushing the strollers. And we felt so deprived that our children are not experiencing this sense of this is the day we all go and we congregate in our house of worship. So that, and in fact, living in an Orthodox Jewish community made it so much easier for us to explain to our children why we don't eat pork.
Yeah, there you go.
And why, and during Christmas time, the menorahs did all the talking. So if we don't have a Christmas tree, well, now looking back, I wish we did. Well, guess what? Our neighbors don't have one either. So being a minority in a minority community did make it easier.
That's funny.
That's interesting.
That's not usually a story that you hear between Muslims and Jewish people. Yeah, we moved into a Jewish community and it helped us become better Muslims.
I have this in my book on the chapter called "A Muslim Amongst Orthodox Jews."
Yeah. With so many similarities, you're right. I mean, that's an easy way to work that with the children as you're explaining it. Yeah, look how close. Yep, we don't have a tree either. We're doing it. So, okay, we've really got a good background on you, and let's talk a little bit about religion. I think we wanted to kind of get into what does Islam mean to you? What does being Muslim mean to you from your perspective? And how would you explain that to people?
Islam means submission to the will of God, and it comes from the root word salam, which means peace. So anyone who submits to the will of God is a Muslim. As a Muslim, I feel that I have a vertical relationship to God and a horizontal relationship to my fellow mankind, my fellow human beings.
Yeah.
And in my vertical relationship to God, it starts with belief that there is one God, the creator, the sustainer, who provides for us and guides us and looks out for us. And that I pray to that God 5 times a day and more if I can, to thank him for his blessings and to ask him for his guidance and for forgiveness. My relationship with God is that I will fast during Ramadan once a year, not only to know what it is like to go without food, not only to instill discipline and restraint, but also because it makes me God conscious. And my relationship with God is that in a lifetime, if I can afford it, I will go to Mecca, perform the Hajj, and walk in the footsteps of Prophet Abraham, the patriarch of the Abrahamic faiths. Now, my horizontal relationship with mankind is that I must give to charity. I must part with at least 2.5% of my liquid assets so that I can be the vehicle for redistribution of wealth and share what God has blessed me with people who are less fortunate. And that I must love my neighbor as I love myself, and I must commit myself to social justice. That's what Islam means to me.
That is a wonderful summary. I'll be using that audio in my classes. That was really well said. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
The question that I get a lot when it comes to charity, so do you feel that when Muslims give to charity, that charity should go to anybody in need or to Muslims in need? How would you explain that to people?
Anybody in need. So there is a pecking order. Charity begins at home. So those in your immediate family or extended family who are needed are the most deserving, irrespective of what their faith may be. Next is your neighbors. There is a hadith, a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that do not go to sleep at night if your neighbor is hungry. The third is then your community, and then the country you live in, and after that, beyond. So that is the order in which charity is to be distributed, and anybody of any faith who falls is eligible.
And I think most people feel that same way. I mean, I've heard that from so many people, religious or not. You know, charity starts with your family, and then it just kind of spreads out from there. It's an easy way to think about it, and of course it's for all humans. I mean,
and it helps strengthen the bonds of kinship. If you are giving to people outside of your family when people within your family are deserving, that doesn't help strengthen bonds. So there is a wisdom to it, to having that hierarchy.
What does the Quran say about other faiths, about other prophets, about other sacred scriptures?
So God speaks to us in the Quran, and that's our faith, that this is God speaking to humankind, that the faith revealed to Prophet Muhammad is a continuation of Judaism and Christianity. And then God says, I have revealed to you the same message I revealed to Jesus and Moses and all other prophets. And he urges us to believe in what was given to Moses and Jesus. And God also states that we, as in God, make no division between any of them, any of the prophets. And that no one prophet has superiority over the other. God also refers to Jews and Christians as people of the book and has given permission to marry people of the book. At one place in chapter 5, God says, you are standing on nothing until you uphold the Torah, the gospel, and what has been revealed to you from your Lord. There are stories of the prophets in the Quran. Moses is mentioned over 150 times. Prophet Muhammad, incidentally, is mentioned only 4 times. There's a chapter devoted to Mary. The only woman who is mentioned by name in the Quran is Mary. There are stories of the miracles performed by Jesus and by Moses. So it's it urges us to be inclusive of people of other faiths.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to summarize all those relationships between the 3 religions. I have a quiz that I always give in my Islam class, and it turns all those statements you made into a true false. You know, all right. How many times is Mary mentioned in the Quran?
I was just going to say, I remember some of those.
I really walk through all those same things because most people who don't know anybody who's Muslim and have never looked at the faith before, it's so foreign to them. They have no idea that Muslims consider it this continuation of the Abrahamic religion, and you have to start with the foundation, the other books that were written as well, and listen to the other prophets. I think that's a great way to summarize it. Yeah, and you and I both know this from doing interfaith talks and speaking and writing and talking about our books. And it can be difficult sometimes to even get an audience, to get on television, to get on radio, to get a story in the paper because, I mean, they'll flat out tell me what you just said. I've had producers and editors tell me, it's great, wonderful what you're doing, but it's not going to put eyeballs on this television screen and it's not going to sell ads in the magazine. So we're not going to talk about it. We won't cover interfaith work. We won't cover somebody talking about religious tolerance. It's just not going to sell. It's not going to make us money. So sorry, keep good luck.
Yeah, and very often when unfortunate incidences take place like terrorist bombing, mass shootings, anytime the Muslim leadership has put out press releases condemning the action, it doesn't make it into mainstream news. And then we are left with having to answer questions like, why aren't you speaking out? And then we have to explain that we did. We are just not being heard.
Right.
Oh yeah, I get that question. I mean, I've done hundreds of talks at this point. I get that question at every talk I go to. Where are the Muslims speaking out against terrorism? And I always say, well, where do you get your news? I said, well, you're never going to see them in any of those places you just listed. I spend my life looking at news that comes out of Afghanistan and out of Oman and out of different parts of Arabia. I see it when it happens. I see the condemnations immediately. I'll have to literally take a screen grab of something from Twitter and put it up on a slide to show Americans in a small town. Here's the statement. It can't be clearer. Full condemnation. The minute it happened, but you'll never see it on American press because it doesn't sell.
Well, all I can say is thank you for what you're doing. You're really helping us.
Yeah.
Truly.
It's just stunning. I'm with you. It's so hard. You want so badly for people to just sit and talk, but it is hard to get people together to listen. It's one of the reasons Hollie came to me with this podcast idea. I, like you, was just running out of money and time and ability to travel. I'd been across the country, north and south, east and west, and she said, well, why don't you have a podcast? You can reach a bigger audience. You can hit international and still have the same conversations. So you have to just find different ways to get it out there if the press and the media don't want to cooperate.
Yeah.
Another question we had was, how do Muslims incorporate respect for other faiths in their lives and rituals?
5 times a day when we say our prayers, in the last section of the prayer, we pray to God for his blessings on the progeny of Abraham.
There you go.
5 times a day, and it's more than 5 times because every prayer has multiple units. The most important, once in a lifetime, largest gathering on earth that takes place once a year is the Hajj, and it is centered around Prophet Abraham. The Hajj is not about Prophet Muhammad. The Hajj is about walking around the house that Prophet Abraham built with Ishmael and dedicated it to God. It's walking in his footsteps. It's performing the rituals of the sacrifice that he made after God rescinded his directive to sacrifice his son. We walk in his footsteps when the devil tried to dissuade him 3 times, telling him not to listen to God. Like, are you crazy? You're going to sacrifice your son? Kind of, I can imagine the dialogue between Satan and Abraham, and he threw stones at him. And then Satan went away. Then he walked a few steps, and then Satan came again, and the same dialogue. He threw stones at him. The 3rd time it happened again, and then the devil gave up and went away. So we do the same in Hajj. We go to these 3 pillars which signify the devil, and we stone them, and then we sacrifice the lamb. And it's all about Abraham to remind us that he is the patriarch, and from him emanate the 3 monotheistic religions, and that we are all children of the one patriarch, and we are all cousins in faith.
I think. Have you been on the Hajj?
Twice.
Okay, that made me think. I'm a big fan of boxing, so I've read Muhammad Ali's books, and I've read stories about Malcolm X, and I just saw a tweet the other day from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because I was a big basketball fan when he was playing, and you see that in all of their lives. You notice that impact after the Hajj, and they come back and
Yes.
go, I now don't just see Islam differently, but I see Christianity and Judaism differently, and I've come back to that realization that this is about all three faiths, and about making humankind better by being more tolerant of other faiths. And of course, you saw that in the way they acted, when they came back from the Hajj. That was a shift in their life. I think that's a great way to explain it.
Yeah, it's a transformational experience, and it affects everybody differently, but in a positive way.
And that's an interesting point. Being that it is a tradition based on Abraham. I mean, I wonder what would happen, and maybe this is a step forward in interfaith work, if we started, not during the large Hajj when everybody is there, but more interfaith trips to make the pilgrimage to Mecca and see the Kaaba. And I wonder what would happen if we did more of that. Instead of saying, only Muslims can attend, if we had interfaith gatherings of people from all three faiths going on a Hajj together and talking about it, and what a great documentary that would be, to bring 100 people, 33 from each faith, to go through it together and learn about each other, and sharing the meals, and just having that moment, and do it at other places as well. We certainly could use more of that in Jerusalem and other places where different faiths gather to do more things in an interfaith way.
I would like to see that happen. In fact, recently at the time of Hajj, I had written a piece for the Wall Street Journal in which I raised this particular circumstance, that when you're on the road to Mecca, the road signs appear saying Muslims straight to Mecca and non-Muslims exiting.
Yes.
And I cringe every time I see that, and because I feel that this is the house that Abraham built, and he is their patriarch, meaning Christians and Jews, as much as ours. And I would like to see one day Mecca open its doors to all faiths. It would be a wonderful interfaith experience. Well, I have the same dream.
That would be, maybe we should work on this. Well, I've got quite a gathering of different interfaith people now around the world that I'm talking with. Maybe, and I know a film producer who was on our show already. Maybe this is the time we gather some people and start working with the Saudi government and see if we can push that forward. I just think it would be a monumental thing for people to see. And then next stop, Jerusalem. We're gonna go see all the sites of every part of all these three religions, and do it together. And I think it would be a big shift. I remember growing up, I grew up Baptist, but my best friend was Jewish, and so I would go to synagogue with him whenever I stayed at his house on the weekends, because they were very observant. And then in the Army, you didn't always have a certain church at your access, so I would go to whatever Christian church was available around the globe wherever we were. And then as I started working in Muslim countries and studying Islam, I would go to mosque and with my friends, and everybody, wherever I went in any religion, was always welcoming. I never had anybody say, "Oh, you shouldn't be here. You're not our type of religious person." So that would be, maybe that's the dream we need to push more.
Yeah, we do, for sure.
That is where we will wrap it up with Sabeeha today, but please join us for our final episode with her, where we ask her the question, is Sharia law compatible with American values? She has some eye-opening remarks. As always, thanks for listening. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at We're Just Talking About It, and you can email us at wjtanc@gmail.com.